My energy over the last week has been dismal. I noticed that when I went down to SoCal, I had a steep bump in energy, and coming back, it's been slowly declining, and it's been hard for me to be able to get motivated to do as many things as I did when I was down there. And here's the deal. I feel frustrated. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how frustrated I feel, how disconnected I feel from God. And I remembered a very earthly comparison from back when I was 9. On my 9th birthday, February 25th, it was a Thursday, 1999. I come home having done my part in a very hard situation. My mom was on and off drugs. My brother and sister had their own rules to fit in the family. Mine was to get everybody back and forth from school, make sure everybody had enough food to eat, that sort of thing. And I remember coming home in the evening and hearing about seeing this cake, hearing about how we could only eat part of it that day, and sitting down to my mom explaining to me that I would not be getting a present this year because she really wanted to get us an awesome present, but that she couldn't afford to give me the present alone, so she would give me a present on my brother's birthday, and that would be a shared present between my brother and I. And I remember sitting there at 9 and going, okay, she doesn't have much. I don't need her to give me something. I mean, this sucks. Yes, I'm 9 years old and I'm not getting a birthday present, but I don't need this. And come my brother's 8th birthday, a few months later in July, she shows up with a Game Boy Advanced and a game, gives it to my brother, and said that this was his birthday present. And when I asked if it was still both of ours, she said, yes, but it's mainly his. And I remember feeling so... like I was going through trials and tribulations, and I was alone in that responsibility, and I couldn't see the reward of it. I could not see how everything I had been going through, being the best son I could be, how it could end up with me being given responsibility rather than recognition. And I struggle with that thought today. I mean, on a much larger scale. You guys know some of this now. I'm 26 years old. I've got a 5-inch by 4-inch by 4-inch tumor in my right iliac that goes down to the place in the bone that connects my hip to my leg. It extends all the way down there, and it is weight bearing. And I've got these things that I've never dealt with before. I've never dealt with a lack of motivation. I've never dealt with a inability to just be determined and get things done. I've never dealt with fatigue and chronic pain, and at least not on this scale. And the idea that I have two choices, which both seem kind of hard. I've got a choice of if this is fibrous dysplasia, which is one of the 2 diseases we've narrowed it down to, then it's lifelong and incurable, but not life-threatening. I just have to deal with the fact that I could break my hip at any time, and it'll be painful for a long time to come. And I might have hormone imbalances and neurological disorders that steadily either increase or will need treatment for. And that's just my life now, if it's that disease. And, it's not life-threatening, which is great, but it's definitely life-altering, and that's hard. And then I've got this other side of things, which my other choice, that I'll find out if it's this or if it's that. And I could have cartilage cancer, which would be life-threatening. But they could scrape it all out, fill it with bone graft, and it would repair itself. And hopefully all of my symptoms would go away. And I'm sitting here going, man, I feel like the camel who's always having straw thrown on his back, and who sometimes just, I try to do the best I can, try to be a good human being, but all this stuff that I'm going through, all this stuff that I'm persisting against, it's heavy, and it causes me to stumble, and it causes me to feel like crying out to God, why is this happening to me? How is this happening to me? Have I not been a good son? Why am I dealing with all this work? And I remember 2 things. One, the parable of the prodigal son, and the difference between the good son and the bad son, and how I have a little bit of both, honestly, in my life. And I remembered that as I was listening to a song. It was giving glory to God because it's His breath in our lungs. I should be crying out my praise. That's the line. It's your breath in my lungs, and I cry out my praise. And I stumbled through that song initially because it was really, really, really hard to remember that I am blessed to have the good fortune of being alive to struggle through this. I am blessed to have the good fortune to have all my friends and family care enough to follow this stuff as I go through it. And it's really hard to see that when I expected so much more than where I'm at right now. I expected to have either a thriving build, if you'd come to me a year and a half ago, I would have expected to have a thriving business by now, which I set aside for something else instead. If you had come to me a year ago, I would have expected to be, I was on track to be making money, good money, in just a short while. If you had come to me 3/4 of a year ago, I was making good money, and I was on track to be making even more money. As an insurance agent, I helped people claim $50,000 in income in a month and a half. I improved the lives of people who were going through desperate situations, much the same as mine, by being there with them, by helping them through it, by helping them file for things that they needed help filing for, by being the guiding hand. That in some ways I feel I've had to be for myself currently, and in some ways I've noticed others have been for me. And I'm stuck working through those momentary hardship, this momentary light and passing hardship, because I feel like I've done good things in life. And that it's hard to reconcile where I'm at with the good I've done. And then I thought that I would look into that a little bit more. So I'm going to read to you something real quick. It's from Luke 15, verse 25 through 32. And it says, "Meanwhile, the older son was in a field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called to one of the servants, and he asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has come back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, after all these years, I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. You never once even gave me the youngest goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when the son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you killed the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" And I broke that down a little bit more and said, okay, let's look at that passage and see if we can't look at it from a new perspective here, because you are struggling with that same feeling as much as it is, as much as feelings can lie to you, can be, can harden your heart, can make things difficult. You are struggling with that feeling right now. What is it about that you could look at differently? You have life to struggle through. Yes, that's a hard enough lesson, but what can we delve into that would give you hope? And as I'm asking myself these questions, I sat back and I looked into that and I said, okay, there's a son here who made it possible for another son to be welcomed home in hardship. Yes, the father was the one who held the estate, who made it possible for the son to be in a position where he could be a part of that estate, made it possible for two sons to be a part of that estate. But the older son tended to things and was such a critical component of this father's estate that when it came time, for him to say, hey, look, what about me? His father said, everything I have is yours. You make this possible. Do not underestimate your role. And maybe that's a little bit of a leap. Maybe that's an extension. But I think it's something I can take heart in. So I'm going to choose to believe that God uses me well. So while I'm here sitting and wondering how I can give praise, and struggling with these feelings, these overwhelming feelings of how am I going to make it through this next chore, through this next thing? I keep forgetting stuff. I keep losing track of my life. How am I going to muster up the next hurdle? Why do I have so many hurdles? I think the answer really is this question of what benefit am I to the world? What do I get to do that nobody else does, that makes sure that all the lost brothers and sisters out there have a place to come home to where they'll be celebrated? And yeah, Everything I have is His, our Father's. And I am fortunate enough to be a part of His inheritance. It is His breath in my lungs. And maybe that's the greatest thing worthy of praise right now. So, now you know what I struggle through.